that 80 million on the iPhone was a pretty big number, so 77 million is not bad. The top line was really good, and that beat estimates. That's going to tell us something, which they guided for the March quarter. If they're selling more in the December quarter, that just means March is going to be softer. So I think that's probably what explained the dip, that initial dip. And I think, you know, it's a big product. It's a good product. I think those supply chain reports didn't really sort of, you know, muster out in these numbers.
So people were, even though the iPhone estimate was for 80 million, you think the sort of whisper or the fear was much lower than that? So
yes.
They came in at 77.
And I think that it was below the guidance, but I mean below the expectations, but I think it's still a good number. I think it's a strong, healthy number that belies all the supply chain concerns, reports that we've seen before.
Jason, a couple of the segments which aren't, you know, for sure as important, but did also miss relative to expectations. iPad shipments a little bit light at 13 million, Mac shipments a little bit light around 5.1 million, services revenue a little bit below what the street was looking for at 8.5 billion. Any of those a big deal to you?
You know, the services business is something we focus on pretty intently. The other two are pretty marginal. And, you know, really, again, it's an iPhone company with this long-run path towards services growth. And services has been growing at about 25% for some time and carries a lot higher margins than the iPhone business. So that's something that we pay quite a bit of attention to. And that slight miss there will require a little bit more digging on our part. But it's been certainly one of the legs of the stool for our bullish thesis on Apple stock.
And Ross, what do you have to say about these numbers?
Well, I guess all that analysts' garbage was garbage, and they sold a perfectly fine amount of phones. And we do this every quarter where the analysts are wrong. Earnings were good, and they're a little bit less than I would have liked, but honestly, you know, they're doing a great job executing right now, and hopefully, as we move into this year further, they have, I think, a clearer path of what position they're going to take in the future on services, because it's clear that they're going into video and such, but how is that going to be monetized in any way for Apple? And I think that's the big question moving forward.
Were they wrong, Ed? I mean, so the reports, especially over the past week, that have built up a lot of momentum, are about how they're going to have the production going forward. This is a backward-looking thing. Obviously, they did provide some guidance as well. So are there two different narratives here?
I don't think they're two different narratives. I think those supply chain reports are always very wonky and not always good. I think a lot of times they're inaccurate, as Ross pointed out earlier. So I think, you know, it's something you want to look at, but you don't want to give too much credence to until you see the actual numbers. As you can see, they did really well. I agree with everyone about the services. I think that is going to be a key part of the business going forward. We know that Apple, they've greenlit 8 shows at least, TV shows that's going to be part of the system. We don't know how they're monetized, so that's a good question in terms of, is it part of Apple Music? Is it bundled in? Is it a separate kind of services play where you pay a separate fee? Or could it be as simple as if you own an Apple device, you get access to these shows, which would be an interesting way of thinking about how they look at media, you know?
Ross?
We know how they're going to approach this. Right now, what they're going to do is give the shows away, and they're going to put them on your Apple TV and see if people watch them. And if they're able to have some success with the shows they're making, then they're going to continue to make more shows and try to build this into a service. So they're not approaching this in a very aggressive way, typical Tim Cook. He's really just kind of tiptoeing in here to see if they can actually make good content. So we'll see how that works for them. But there's no monetization path.
Mr. Santoli, what do you think? Mike, let me bring in Mike Santoli for a sec. Mike?
Yeah, well, first of all, I think that the market did a pretty decent job of sniffing out slightly underwhelming iPhone sales, right? The stock's down 6% in 2 weeks. I think the question now is the market going to try to figure out if this is just a kind of elongated replacement cycle, or is it going to be a stock that's trapped in a situation of, okay, what's my next catalyst exactly here without a launch and without necessarily a big holiday quarter? So no disaster whatsoever. Stock's going to find its level, but I think that's the context in which these numbers are reported.
Hey there, thanks for checking out CNBC on YouTube. Be sure to subscribe to stay up to date on all of the day's biggest stories. You can also click on any of the videos around me to watch the latest from CNBC. Thanks for watching.